We're going to end today by talking about the transfer window that's just closed and some of the grades. LME, you can decide where we start. Are you going to go with your team, or are you going to leave your team for later on in the show?
No, let's go with my team. Let's do it. Okay. I mean, how many?
How did they do, Villa?
Well, it wasn't so long ago that we were talking about, Lewis Graben and Axel Tuanzebe going on loan in the Championship for Villa. So, now we're looking at this. To me, in my opinion, this January in 2025 for Aston Villa, they get an A. And don't allow my bias to get in the way here, because I have criticized Villa in the past in the transfer window. This is an A. It was the most ambitious, aggressive, and reactive transfer window Villa has ever had. Jadon Philogene went to Ipswich Town, Diego Carlos to Fenerbahce, Yon Duran to Al Nassr, and that particular sale forced Villa to react. Okay, and I think aside from the Malen and the Garcia entrances, Marcus Rashford is a smart gamble for me, because he still has to audition himself, because it's a loan with an option to buy. Asensio, to a lesser degree, is the same way, and Disasi is a very good centre back that just needs a chance. So Villa brought in more than $100 million with that revenue right there. That in the age of PSR, that's massive. So to me, it was a situation where Villa were reacting because of the Colombian sale to Al Nassr, and they did it very well. They get an A for me.
Okay, Manchester City for you, Shaka. Let's take a look at who's come in. And Kyle Walker going out on loan to Milan, plus a few other loan deals that they have sent players away. What do you make of what they've done, and what would be your grade for this?
Well, that depends. As LME was just discussing, in the age of PSR, I'm not sure how that applies for Manchester City, given everything that's continues to be going on behind the scenes. Again, spent very heavily this January transfer window. PSR aside, I give Manchester City an A. I think they've addressed a lot of their issues. Listen, it's always going to be difficult to replace Rodri, the best player in his position, but they've gotten a defensive midfielder. They've gotten support for Erling Haaland up front. I think Marmoush has shown himself to be a very good second option, whether he comes from the wing, whether he does the Julian Alvarez and features through the middle on his own, whatever it may be. I think those are good signing. Kuzminov, all right, just the one start, and that was rather indifferent, certainly to start with. But he's a young player and more for the eye for the future than to come in and solve any issues. As when I think about Manchester City's January transfer window, I have to put it in the perspective of what's to come, given that Manchester City, in my mind, are in desperate need of a major rebuild. This is a step in the right direction. They've addressed some of the immediate need. So I as a result, I give them somewhere between an A and an A minus, because A minus only because there's so much more to come. But then there is PSR, but then is there really? I'm not so sure. A minus will do.
Okay, let's cross the city, LME. Manchester United, Dorgu, the only real starter that they've added. It was pretty quiet outgoing Anthony to the south of Spain, going to Betis on loan, and Marcus Rashford going to Villa. Have they done enough? And what's your grade?
No, I'm giving them a D. I'm basing this on the transfer window. I am. I'm sorry. It's not an F or an E, because I do think Patrick Dorgu is a good acquisition. We've talked about him in the show. He's the right type of player for Ruben Amorim. Aiden Heaven, obviously, another project. Anthony, you're releasing a lot of the wages there, but here, and Marcus Rashford as well. Okay, maybe a C minus. But here's the issue. Okay, when you are a team that's playing a defensive midfielder as a number 9 or a false 9 or whatever, you need a striker. Højlund and Xerxes, I feel that you could have been more creative, Manchester United, in the transfer window to maybe play around with maybe one of them going back on loan somewhere and bring in somebody that can give you something to score goals. Because yes, even though the Premier League is obviously a lost cause for Manchester United, they're still at this moment, right, in competitions where they can win something. Amorim has a good record with trophies. You need a striker. You needed to do something. And I feel you gave up the Nkunku situation too early, and you weren't open-minded enough to try and bring something there. You need a goal scorer, not a project, and you didn't make it happen. So I'm giving you that grade.
Okay, Shaka, let's end this bit with Spurs before we finish up today with the teams that didn't really make many signings. Now, I thought Spurs had a difficult, not transfer window, but a difficult time of who to try and get, because most of their injuries are going to come back, apart from Dragushin and obviously Richarlison, who took that sore one in the League Cup semi-final. So how have they done, knowing that a lot of their players who've not been playing of late will soon be playing again?
I'll echo LME in a lot of his analysis of Manchester United. I don't think they've addressed many of their issues. Yes, Tell comes in, but while Tell is a very good young player and one for the future, it's on loan and a project and a project. And right now, Spurs need more than just a project. And you mentioned Richarlison, who's been, let's be honest, indifferent since the arrival in North London, limps off injured. So that again as a concern to squad depth and certainly in terms of firepower up front. So it's again, yeah. Spurs has so many issues and need to plug so many holes. I would have liked to see, for all their talent and all the young talent who's shown relatively well, I'd have liked to see more experience than us talking about prospects. And even so, the brightest of those prospects is on loan. So what am I supposed to, how is that the prospect? That's a nice prospect for Bayern, that you can get young players to have meaningful action for, in the Premier League for a club like Spurs, but it means nothing. It means nothing for Spurs.
So we're running out of time. So rather than ask you the final question, which was going to be, out of Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool and Newcastle, which one should be more concerned at not making a signing? I'm just going to dive straight in. Arsenal haven't signed a striker. Miguel Arteta said he wanted one. Same question to you both. How much could that hurt Arsenal not adding in the January transfer window? LME, you start.
Massively, massive. We've talked about this, elephant in the room. Arsenal are not a team that's trying to get into the top four or maintain it. They want to win this whole thing. You can't do it without a natural striker. And I don't care. I understand that they won 5-1 against Man City, but over the course of a season, you need a goal scorer. And the Ollie Watkins bid was rejected, fair enough. But I don't like the tunnel vision here. Santiago Jimenez went to AC Milan for north of like $40 million. Why are you not opening your specter here? Because there's tremendous talent in Europe and you're not looking. And I think that Edu's exit is a massive part here because there's no direction. But I'm giving them a very bad grade here. And it's not because of what they're doing on the pitch. Clearly, they're rivaling Liverpool. But if you want to win this whole thing, right, history tells you that you need a legitimate goal scorer. I gave them an F. I'm sorry. Like, they needed a striker and they didn't do it.
Okay, so you've just used tunnel vision and looking before Shaka Hislop, who can't see because he's got his specs and his contacts. Even you can see, Shaka, with your bad eyesight, that Arsenal needed to sign a striker.
Yeah, that's the benefit of taking my glasses off and not wearing contacts. Nobody could accuse me of any kind of vision. Whatever, who knows? But I will totally agree with LME. I think certainly of the three clubs that you mentioned, Arsenal have fared the worst because they had one job. They had one player to get in. And yeah, so on the one hand, I want to say, well, you needed that striker over a league format. You need those goals. Maybe not having that striker works better in the Champions League. I'm tempted to say because it's a cup format, but then Arsenal just got knocked out of both cups in the space of a month. And so where does that leave Arsenal? Trying to chase down a Liverpool who can rely on the goal scoring of a Mo Salah and everybody else around him, and you can't boast of that kind of anywhere near coming close to match that firepower. That's been a need that Mikel Arteta surely has recognized for quite some time, but stubbornly has not addressed. That's not good enough.
Well, the one thing we haven't had on ESPN FC Live for a few weeks is a mention of my favourite team. Arsenal could have had Lawrence Shankland of Hearts, last season's top scorer in Scotland. He's out of contract in the summer and he's back in form, having scored at Dundee last week. Could have got him for 100 million. We would have sold you them on the cheap. but they didn't make the offer. So, hey, their loss. He can play on Monday at St Mirren.
Who had 33 minutes on the Scotland football bingo
I'm
card
actually,
this week?
I'm so surprised it's 33 minutes, actually.
It
know
took
what?
a long time. It took a
know
long
what?
time.
I've kept them off the radar for a while because they weren't
That
doing
is
well.
true.
Back in
You
form
have
now.
you have
Back
held
in
on.
form
You have
now.
held on.
Expect Wednesday, Friday mentions when ESPN FC returns next week.